Hello and welcome to
Hey,
another episode of For the Love of Sports. Hello to you as well, Kim. Sorry, usually the intro I just talk to the people. We'll get to you in a second, don't you worry. This is For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, we get to talk about everything in between, wherever you're listening, however you're listening. You probably know what to do, right, Kim? 5-star review, leave a review. I think on Spotify you can do 5 stars now. On YouTube you can click subscribe. On LinkedIn, I don't know, ask us a cool comment. But it's all fun and games. It's all fun and games. And incredibly, today, my guest, I have Kim Hildreth. She is a professional volleyball player, professional health coach, all-around cat lover. Kim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
It's a good day to be alive, Kim. It is a good day to be alive. I'm very excited to get to talk to you really about the business side of volleyball. Obviously, want to understand your career, what you've done. I saw you played a bunch in college, the difference between beach and indoor. I watch everything when it comes to the Olympics. I told you candidly, I love playing volleyball on the weekends with my friends, maybe have a couple beers. But the first question I have for everybody, Kim, on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
That's a great question to start with.
Thank you.
I think it goes hand in hand with being a health coach. Like the things that I love in both aspects of my career are like sports were for me for sure like my first avenue of like tangible ability to get better at something and like visible results, like you work on something super hard in practice, and even in practice you might get those results of like I'm trying to change this certain technique or the way I do things, and then whoa, all of a sudden I like hit the ball harder, and like that's pretty exciting. And I think for me that's always been like a driving factor in my life of like that self growth. I think has become like my like a little bit of addiction, and like that I just it's awesome to like be in so much control over like how much you can get better, and I think that's it's just like super empowering and fun. So I think volleyball was, my sport of choice for that.
It is interesting, right? There's only so few things. I mean, I guess maybe I just have a closed mindset with thinking about it, but how many things do you really do in life where it's like, hey, if you practice this really, really hard every single day, like you're going to see those tangible results. Like most people in their jobs, it's like you're an accountant, like you're going to practice accounting like so damn hard. And then that tax return season's like, no, that's not really how it works. Like you know how to do a tax return or not. They're going to change the laws on you. You get to learn how to do it again. So maybe it's just me, but outside of sports, can you even think of anything else that like where you work really, really hard at something and then you can kind of see the tangible results, I guess, outside of like fitness and sports? Like what else is there, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, yes, actually, I do that for a living. I think,
Hey, what a question,
when,
Mike. What a question.
yeah, um, I get to watch people work on themselves for a living. Like as a health coach, I help people, with health issues and nutrition, movement, all that stuff, like moving and becoming physically more healthy the way that they want. But a lot of that work is done like behind the scenes in the mental work. And I think it's really, super satisfying to like help be a part of, and like watching myself, like, you can, I'm just talking to somebody about this recently, but like I think the general population underestimates how many things in life are like practicable skills. And I think,
Clearly, I'm one of them. So, yeah, I
yeah,
get
but I
that.
mean, I think if you approach everything in life as this is a skill I can practice and get better at, like you'd be surprised how many things like open up for that. And I've seen it. Like I've seen people, practice getting better at small talk, practice getting better at putting themselves out there, practice getting better at waking up in the morning, practice getting better at like telling themselves like their self-talk, like how much more positive that can be. Like so um yeah, I think it's something that culturally that seems to be like lost, that like we think that things are so black and white and like you're good or you're bad at something, but like I really don't believe that, and I think sports have taught me that like there's so many things in life that you can practice getting better at, and I think that's like super exciting.
Yeah, no, you actually make a great point. Like all of those things that you mentioned, like I personally practice myself. So I guess like I'm just when I was thinking of that question out loud, just didn't think of myself or really anything in context. But that's totally true, right? Like it's very, I mean, quote unquote, easy to practice to get up early. Now, if you do it or not, that's on you. But like set your alarm for 1 minute earlier every single week, and eventually, after a year, you're waking up an entire hour earlier, right? Like it's just easy
Yeah.
little things like that that I guess people don't look at in the micro, they only look at them in the macro, and it's like, well, I'm trying to wake up an hour earlier, so I'm going to set my alarm an hour earlier. Well, you're going to fail, man. I'm telling you that right now. It's not
Yes.
going to work. And I'm kind of curious, and obviously we'll get to your career in volleyball and everything, but I think this is a fun way to start the conversation, especially like in that comparison again, health coaching, waking up earlier, self talk, something I promote and practice constantly every single day. Volleyball and your skill set, like the incremental increases sometimes take a very long time. And the better you get at it, the harder it is, I guess, then to jump those next levels, potentially depending on how high you're trying to get. How often do you deal with that across both of your careers, let's call it, where, hey, like, eating a salad once a week, going from 0 to 1 is really important. And then you can go from 1 to 2. Like, how often do you come across that in both sides of your career?
Yeah, all the time. That's like honestly something that people have a really hard time grasping. And I think, especially for me, the population of people that I tend to work with health coaching wise are athletes, former athletes. And most of us in the world of sports have this like all or nothing mindset of like if I didn't give 110%, I did nothing. Like it wasn't worth it if I didn't give everything. And I think it's really hard for athletes specifically to like find that like incremental growth, and that 1% better is like one of, my favorite coaches that I ever had, Raquel Ferreira. She always put it that way. She's like, your first couple of years of your beach volleyball career, and I think this goes for any athlete, like when you're becoming like even just college to pro, there's like these huge jumps that you make. It's like I get 50% better in 1 year, and then I might get 30% better the next year, and that still feels good, and then it goes to 10, and then like I'm kind of near the top, and now there's just like not that much room to get better. And she always said like, what's your 1% better this year? And I think that's a really good thing, like for sports and for not sports, to like consider. And I actually asked that on my social media, and I'm planning on having a post soon. I asked everybody like, what's your 1% better for this year? And just got like a really crazy, awesome variety of answers of everybody thinking like, hey, if incrementally every day I'm thinking about what's my 1% better, by the end of the year, you're going to be 1% better, and you can look back at that. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and something that's hard for people to grasp sometimes. Like for example, I had a client today that I talked to, and she's like, I want to work out more consistently. And I'm like, cool. Like the first thing you need to practice is you need to practice showing up to go to the gym, because you've not been doing that. But like in her head, she's like, I have to start working out. And if I don't go and I didn't sweat, it was a failure. But I'm like, well, you don't even have the habit of going yet. So why don't you just start there? And like, if you literally just go to the gym
Mm-hmm.
3 times a week, and it doesn't matter what you do there, but then you reached your goal, and now you've developed this habit of, I already am used to carving out this time for this. And then eventually you're probably going to start working out.
Yeah, I think that's so. You make a couple really great points. One, it was taught to me as well. It was like, well, okay, so you want to go on a run? Don't go on a run. Just put on your shoes. That's
Yeah.
it. Just put on your shoes, and that's all you have to do. Set the bar so unbelievably low that you're just like, damn, I can obviously put on my shoes. And then
Mm-hmm.
you put on your shoes, and you're like, well, I guess my shoes are on. I might as well at least go for a walk, right? And then
Yeah.
you open your door, you walk out of your house or your apartment, and then you start going on your walk, and you're like, all right, well, this is not that bad. I guess I could go for a very light jog, right? And that's like the easiest way to get into something. People think I'm gonna go on a 10-mile run. It's like, you're gonna die. Like, don't go on a 10-mile run. Just put on your
Mm-hmm.
shoes. Like, make the bar so easy to jump over that it's almost impossible for you not to do it. And you're just going to get closer to that potential goal, which will then make you go. That's how it was taught to me. Shout out David Meltzer, incredible coach of mine
Yeah.
over the days. And I think that's exactly like what you're saying, right? Like, just literally drive to the gym. Like, just get there, walk inside, walk around, chat. Most people go to the gym to chat anyway. They're not actually
Yeah.
going to do anything. So just go in and chat, and eventually you'll get there, which I think is pretty cool. Completely agree. I want to move backwards in time. What's your 1% better this year, Kim?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Mine is letting.
My head's gonna be huge by the end of this thing. Thank you.
I always appreciate good questions, because I think that's part of my job. Like people pay me to ask them hard questions
Love it.
and really look at their life. So I appreciate getting them back, because I like to reflect on this stuff. So my 1% better this year is letting go. I've noticed in the last couple of years that like I feel safe when I feel in control of stuff. And I think, especially for my volleyball career, my personal life, like I have a tendency to not allow other things to happen outside of my control. So this year I was like, whatever happens, I'm going to learn what life looks like. And I can choose at the end of the year if I liked it or if I didn't like it, but I'm going to learn what it looks like when I try to step back and not take control and I just let it go and let everything happen like the way it's supposed to happen or whatever. And then at the end of the year, I'll see. And if I hated it, well, then I'll just go back and try to be in control of everything. But at least I tried something different and got a chance to see like what my life could be like otherwise.
And so from someone in your perspective, right, you're the coach. You're teaching others. I assume you then have coaches, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So how do you gauge and justify what you're doing, right? Like how do you make sure like yes, I am actually letting go or yes, I am actually doing this 1% better because I'm
Like
sure
how
you
do I
could
measure
tell
it?
how do you could tell yourself I tell myself things all the time. I don't know if they're true or not. Like how do you actually make sure that you are letting go? What are you exactly doing to let go?
Yeah, so like
Say it.
I
Say
think
it.
that was a good question.
Thank you.
So it's yeah, it's important to know how you're measuring something that you're doing, right? And I think the biggest, most easiest way to do it is just develop awareness of like, and already I think I've succeeded in that. I think I've had moments where like there was a decision to be made or like, you know, whatever. Like I could basically like force my way into something or I could choose not to. And I've had to at first I had to like see them in past, like I already missed the opportunity and I realized that that I had an opportunity to let go and I didn't. And like once you start becoming aware of things that happened in the past, it starts developing sooner and sooner and sooner, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm in the moment and I'm like, oh, I could choose to let go right now or I could just take control and take over. So for me, awareness has been the first step, which is manifested kind of interestingly so far this year. And then next step I think is like getting more comfortable with that moment and getting better at I don't know what is I don't even know, I can't quite
Mhm.
even say it because I'm not there yet, but
Yeah.
like seeing kind of what happens when I choose that, and what my options are, because I know what my options are if I'm going to be in control, but I don't really know what my options are if I'm letting go, and maybe there's more options than I think there are. um, so I think for me, awareness is like the most concrete way to like measure it.
I completely agree. I personally believe awareness is a superpower. Like if you have the
Yeah.
capabilities of being self-aware and being aware in situations and really being able to understand and take things in real time, I think you're going to be so much more just in tune with what's actually going on and realizing like maybe you shouldn't actually take control. Not that you should like want to or don't want to. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
probably best if you shouldn't. So I've been practicing that for years. I want to say probably going on 5-6 years at this point, and it is so much fun being able to see those things in real time, being able to hear my thoughts. Like, right, isn't that funny? I hear my thoughts in
Yeah.
real time, right? Like you
Yeah.
say it and it sounds kind of silly, but like, tell me how often like you just kind of let negative thoughts ramble, right? You being
Yeah,
just the
and ramble
colloquial
and
you.
be in control, and
Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the best way, and I might steal this, but like it's probably the
Please.
best way to define what I do is like I help people become more self-aware. Because I think that's something that sports taught me from the beginning. Like I learned how to become self-aware of like, okay, well, if I love using volleyball analogies. Most of my clients are volleyball players because most of my following is volleyball players. But I'm like, if you try to get better at passing a volleyball, like you need to have your elbows straight, and a lot of people will have their elbows bent, and you can literally like choose to be aware. You can practice being aware of like as the ball's coming at me, no matter what, my elbows are going to be straight, even if I pass the ball backwards, like, and like developing that awareness as an athlete started to trickle off the court. And I'm like, wow, you can develop awareness and do a whole lot of other stuff. And I think that practice as an athlete has helped me a lot. And I got a chance to like coach that as a volleyball coach, also like before becoming a health coach, and like teach other people like how to develop the awareness I had on the court with my body. And then that's just like spiraled into my health coaching career.
That is awesome. So my favorite
Yeah.
reason why I have this podcast is listening to and talking to people that are super passionate about something, especially if I have no idea what it is. That just makes me so happy because I'm able to learn obviously from someone that is extremely excited to talk about something. So I do appreciate you coming on, Kim, because obviously you're very very passionate about volleyball, obviously about health coaching as well, which I think is pretty darn cool and necessary, right? Like we were kind of talking a little bit beforehand, like what exactly is a health coach in your words? Like we know the new one that you got because we helped you out. We
Yeah.
kind of workshopped that a little bit, but like What's a health coach, Kim?
Yeah, so a health coach at large in the whole industry is kind of like a new up and coming industry as insurance companies are starting to become aware that like if we prevent people from getting sick, they actually
Hey,
cost us less money than letting
proactive.
people get sick. Yeah.
Woo,
So
isn't
it's
that
actually an
crazy?
up and coming industry. And I think recently just got approval, some kind of approval that you can get reimbursed by insurance to work with a health coach, which is awesome. Great for the industry, great for humans, our culture,
Hey,
everything. So health coaches in general are behavior modification experts. And so we will help you, and in terms of health, like we'll help you modify the behaviors that you're doing that are causing you to be unhealthy, which generally work towards nutrition or movement. But most health coaches come from, and definitely me, come from a holistic perspective where, like, you're not eating the way that you want and not moving. Like everybody, I don't know anybody that I've ever talked to that was 100% satisfied with the way they eat and move. Everybody thinks that they can do better. And it's like, okay, well, what's holding you back from doing better? And like, that's a health coach's job, is to figure out what those details are, what's holding you back, and empower you to start taking those first steps to get there. And I can say with 100% honesty that like 100% of my clients have gotten like way healthier in their goals and like way happier in their control over their life and like their outlook on life by working with a health coach, because it's just empowering to have time to have somebody sit there and work on helping you solve your problems,
mm-hmm.
honestly.
No, 100%. And like, it's, I kind of made the facetious comment before we got on, but like, you can get all this information for free from some random person on
Yeah.
TikTok, right? Like, it's not hard to Google, like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, like what's a diet for me, right? And then you could try some
Mhm.
things. But it's actually having someone, as you said, take the time to sit down and talk to you and understand who you are and what you're trying to do. Go on a walk every day. Like I literally just go on walks every day and I love it. And it's my favorite thing in
Mhm.
the entire world. It takes 28 minutes pretty much every single time. Heart rate gets above 100. I hear that's kind of good. And hey, I eat a salad for lunch. Like I don't think it's rocket science, but at the same time, like I could also totally agree with you and said like if we work together, I'd probably get healthier and I'd probably
Mhm.
do better because again, you're there to support and help and you really just kind of understand who I am as a person, which I think is really interesting. And the one comment that you made that is honestly like kind of surprising. I guess not really considering like your background as a volleyball player, but it's really interesting that most of your clients are athletes. And again, just kind of coming from the outside world. Like I played JV baseball, don't want to brag, but like coming from the outside world, like you'd think athletes, these, the most fittest human beings on planet Earth, professional, college, doesn't matter. What do they need health coaches for? Like they know what they should eat, right? But I guess clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to like mindset stuff, of like why most of the athletes that I work with aren't satisfied with the way that they're living their life. And probably like two parts. Part one is like, I think, most athletes, again, I think we said this earlier, but like most athletes have this like all or nothing mindset that really doesn't serve them, especially the moment that they stop doing whatever
Mm,
sport they were
yep.
doing for the most part. So most of the people I work with are post serious sporting stuff, but they're still identify as an athlete and they don't really know how to do that as not being an athlete. And so, when you leave that world of like all or nothing is rewarded and all of a sudden you're in this world where all or nothing is like not serving you, like they have no balance, they have no, it's like I'm going to go to the workout and crush myself for a week and then I don't work out for like 2 weeks because I crushed myself. Like there's this like woo, like up and down. And so that's probably part one of the most thing that I work with. And I think like part two is like health coaching is different but as important as therapy. Like a lot of people really, and athletes for sure, like really are like, I've had a bunch of past stuff, like I've survived some stuff, but like I'm fine. Like I don't need to process that anymore, but like I don't know what else to do because I'm still not like thriving. Like there's this difference between like I made it through and there's like this point where as an athlete you're like I'm always trying to be the best, but like I know I'm not the best at my own life and I know I'm not thriving and I don't really know why. And this is kind of where health coaching comes in, because like therapy is like, okay, you need to process the past to understand yourself better. But like once you understand yourself better, you need to do something about it. And in health coaching, we really focus on action. And it's like probably the most empowering thing, because we take what you know about yourself, or we dive into yourself a little bit so you understand that. And then we were like, okay, well, now what are you going to do? And we like, I think a lot of athletes like really struggle with that missing piece, because they know what they're missing something and they know they're not thriving, but like they don't even maybe know what thriving is for them. Like, so part of it might be like kind of creating a vision of like what that thriving piece looks like. And then being okay with taking, like we talked about earlier, being okay with taking incremental small steps to
Hmm.
get there, instead of just being like, well, I'm not there and I tried hard today and I'm not there, so I'm pissed, like it's kind of that dichotomy of like the all or nothing mindset and the like lack of thriving, I think, that really hits most of the athletes that I work with.
Yeah, that is a very I don't know if ironic is the word, but right, like I need to be thriving, but I didn't go all in. So how can I be thriving when in reality, actually, it's the incremental steps to get there, which is
Yeah.
what will help you get to be thriving, which again will then help you get your goals. That is a really interesting kind of dichotomy. Good word that you used there. That really it's got to be difficult, right, for these athletes again, since young ages. Look at you. Like when did you start playing volleyball? When did you start paying attention to a lot of this stuff, I guess?
I mean, I started playing volleyball at like 11, and then I think definitely by the time I reached high school, my goals for
Hmm.
college, like I found that moment of like, oh, I can be really self-aware on the court and get better a lot faster than these people around me. That was probably it for me. But like, I think even in the last 5 years, like since after I started playing professional volleyball, did I get to that point myself where I was like, oh, I'm not thriving. Like, why am I not thriving? Like, sure, like volleyball is, all sports have their up and downs. And like, I've had, I think the biggest moment I had was 2019 was the best, like on paper season of my career. And at the end of the year, and like, I got engaged, I got married in 2019. Like,
Congratulations.
it was a great year on paper. And at the end of the year, I was like, man, like I spent a lot of this year like not loving my life, and like I was like, what? Like what happened? Because like these are all the things that I wanted in my life and they happened, and I still don't feel like they happened. And I think that for me was like a really big wake up call of like, okay, there's something missing here and I'm not thriving and I don't know why. And like that's definitely when I started more of my health coaching career and more of my personal journey with that. I mean, it kind of happened along the way, but that was my biggest like wake up call. So I can relate. I've been there.
Yeah, well, thankfully for you, after 2019, we had a little year called 2020 where the world shut
Yeah.
down and it kind of ended there for like a solid 6 months. Like, how did you then deal with that aspect? Again, coming from that mental health, not mental health background, but again, you understand that the mental aspect of a lot of the things athletes do is extremely important, right? The mental side is
Yeah.
once you get to that top level, like everybody's good. It's just who's mentally better, I think. And again, not coming
Totally.
from me, I've interviewed a lot of athletes. Their words, not mine. I guess how did you personally deal with that? Because it sounds like 2019 was an awakening year almost, just for you to understand who you were and what you wanted to do. And then like you're probably raring ready to go for 2020. Here comes March, I don't know what, 14th, 2020, a day that will literally live in infamy because the
Yeah.
world shut down. How did you, I guess, deal with that aspect of it and just either kind of take that dip and then come out of it, or be able to kind of sustain through most of that year, where understanding, hey, I control what I can control and I can do what I need to do, whether or not I can go to the grocery store.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said that, because like I don't know if I've ever like put this together. I knew it at the time, but like talking through it, like yes, 2019 like on paper was like one of the best years of my life. Like emotionally, it was not. And then 2020 on paper was like one of the worst years of my life, but emotionally it was the best. Like it
Isn't
was
that
the
weird?
beginning of the best, and
Right.
because, I think it gave me a chance to reflect on and really reckon with like the place that I had put volleyball in my life, when all of a sudden there wasn't any volleyball. And, like, especially for, yeah, like, I mean, most other professional sports, like, kind of got their stuff together by the end of the year. But, like, for beach volleyball, there was like 3 events for the entire year for like maybe a third or a fourth of the players that would normally get to play. Like it was super condensed, and I was fortunate to like be one of those, but I wasn't able to prepare for it like the way that I normally would. So it was kind of just like whatever. Like I'm happy to be here, but like I'm not. I'm never going to be satisfied because I never got to prepare. But like emotionally, I was home and I spent more time with my family than I had in years because of travel for volleyball. Like, I mean, already this year I just got home and I was gone for 3 weeks because of volleyball. And like, so I spent like 12 weeks in a row at home, which is, I
Yeah.
don't know if I've done that like ever in my life, even as a kid, because I was traveling for like club volleyball and stuff. So like that was just, I think 2020 really gave me a chance to like experience a lot of different things, which gave me a lot of perspective, and made me think hard about like, how do I want my life to look? And I think a lot of the people that I've worked with since 2020 like have kind of had a similar experience, and like part of the reason that they're working with me is like my life completely changed that year and I haven't adjusted. Like I don't even know what my routine looks like anymore because my life has been so different in the last 2 years. So yeah, it went from, I don't know, it just like completely flipped 2020 and 2019, like on paper and emotionally, like whoop, like, which was cool. Fortunately for me, like we made it out okay. Like I think, my family, we were a little stressed, obviously financially and like, for our goals and everything, but we made it out for the better. We kind of used the year for our advantage. I know a lot of people couldn't do that, but yeah, for us it was a silver lining year for sure.
100%. And I'm all for taking a negative and turning it into a positive because I'm a very positive person. Negativity does not serve me. So why am I gonna waste my time with it? So I totally agree. Like those first few weeks were weird, but it was literally like me and my now wife at the time, we were just engaged, and yeah, I don't know, it was like what, like 4 weeks I think before we like legitimately left the house, other than just going on a walk around the block. Like
Yeah.
it was nuts, and didn't fight once. Like we knew we were in this together, and like, hey, we'd have those, remember those Zoom hangouts, right? That was fun for
Yeah.
like 2 months. That was a blast. Um,
Yeah.
we would do that. That's like the extent we would see our friends, and we would see our friends like on a weekly basis. So it was like a
Hmm.
super weird like 2 months. But then everything kind of like we kind of figured it out and got moved forward. And yeah, I hate kind of, I don't want to say flaunting it, but 2020 was one of my favorite years ever. 2021 was one of my favorite years ever. 2022 is shaping up to be one of my favorite years ever because I think I was able to hit that point of like understanding who I am and mentally understanding what I need and being able to throw out and block out a lot of the bullshit that I could not care less about. All that's gone now, and I don't need to care
Yeah.
about it, and I'm so much happier for it. Unfortunately, it took a literal worldwide pandemic to get there. But again, we're going to take a negative, we're going to turn it into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like, from my perspective, the people that I've worked with and like my friends, like, there's, just whatever, I guess my community, like, I've seen this huge difference between the people who were able to do what you and I did and like for ourselves, and then the people who saw other people doing that and couldn't figure out how, like, we did that. Like, it didn't quite like work out the
Mm-hmm.
same way in their own lives. And so for me, a lot of the people that have ended up coming to work with me is like I am seeing other people like in the worst situation come out on top, and like I didn't, and what am I missing and why didn't I get to do that too? And I like what we talked about earlier. Personally, I think that's practicable skills. Like I think I got to practice that resiliency in athletics for so long, and I think even the athletes that I work with, like there's just an aspect of like transferring that to your personal life that a lot of people miss. So yeah, I think there's just been that like difference, and like it's very obvious to like people who didn't do it themselves that like other people are like, why and how are you like so happy? How did you make it out of the worst year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever, like on top? Like I didn't, and I'm confused and upset and hurt and jealous from that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first we made it. We all made it out, right? Or everyone that's still here, we made it out. So that's the number one thing. Like, hey, we
Yeah.
we made it out. Like, I think that's one thing to be extremely grateful for. I practice gratitude every single day, which I think is very important to give you
Hmm.
kind of perspective. And yeah, it's really just being able to pick up those. I don't want to say tricks, but as you said, those skills along the way to understand what you need to do to make you better. And the more you do those things every single day, that 1%, again, it's been 5 years. I meditate every single day. I missed one day in the last 5 years meditating. And I believe that's made me 5% better, like at a minimum, right? Like I try and get one. I think it was really interesting. You said, we try to get 1% better every single year. There's a good shot you're going to overshoot that 1%, right? Like
Hmm.
you'll probably get to 1.5%, 2%, 3% better, depending on,
Yeah.
what the skill you're trying to practice is and what you're trying to do, especially towards the end of a year if you're doing it every single day, which I think is really interesting. So I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
I'm not going to say we're lucky because we worked hard at it, but very grateful. That's for sure. So I do want to take, I guess, a little bit
Yeah,
of a turn and kind of get into the volleyball stuff of what you've been doing, right? Because that, interestingly enough, that's kind of led you to where you are and what you're doing and how you're doing it, which I think is really
definitely.
important. So we kind of talked about getting into it. You played in college for 4 or 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. You played some indoor, you played some beach volleyball. What I'm really interested in though is like the business aspect and the money making aspect. Not sure if you're aware, but there's like a dollar counter online that says how much money you made. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but it's there. We don't need to get into
BBB.
I think so. I That doesn't really
Yeah.
matter to me, but what I'm interested in is the actual the the ability to make money in a sport that is not, one of the 4, 5, 6 major sports that I see on TV every day, right? Like what is that like, and how do you go about kind of navigating that aspect of it? Because I mean, if you're making, $50,000 a year, that's great, but I don't know how viable that is in, beach volleyball outside of the Olympics, right?
Right. So I will tell you that obviously the last 2 years don't totally count.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, they kind of count for other sports. Like other sports didn't really stop, but between the last 2 years on our professional tour on the AVP, there were only 6 total events. And in 2020, like I said before, I think they let it was maybe like 12 teams total. So 24 players on the women's side and 24 players on the men's side only got to play. Like, can you imagine in the NBA if they're like, oh, only
Yeah,
24 of you get to play this whole
two
season
teams.
and
Yep.
only 24 of you get paid? Like, what? um, so not counting the last 2 years and looking at this year, maybe like where there's a lot more, both the world tour and the professional AVP tour have a lot more events this year. But total on the AVP tour, there's only $2 million total in prize money for how many players? Like at minimum, like 100 great players on both the men's and women's side. So it's impossible to make $2 million total this whole year as a professional athlete. And I will tell you, in my career, I've only had 1 year that I actually made a profit, even though that year I was like 2019 was like one of the best players on tour. I maybe made like 5 grand after expenses
Ugh.
because I have to pay for my own coach, I have to pay for my own travel, I have to pay for hotel rooms, flights, I have to pay for like strength training. So a lot of us, like I would say, except for the top, maybe like 4 players. I mean, I even know like some of the top players also have other full-time jobs. Like, so I have my own business. I have worked other full-time jobs. I've coached my butt off most of my career to like make it work. So yeah, unfortunately in volleyball, not the most lucrative sport, which is sad because it is the most popular sport in the Olympics to watch is beach volleyball. And we're fingers crossed, hoping that this changes. The AVP got bought out by a new company, Bally's Sports. So I'm really
Oh
curious to see
wow,
how that. Yeah, so
I
I'm
didn't
really
realize
curious to see
that.
how that partnership will go this year. It's already like there's been a lot more volleyball on TV. I've had like random people text me and be like, "Oh, your game's on at this bar," and I'm like, "Sweet, like that's good for volleyball." Like,
That's cool.
hopefully, we all make more money. But yeah, so most of us have to kind of like navigate this, and I think this is something I've had so many conversations recently with like younger players, especially with girls coming out of college. So like now there's college beach volleyball, which wasn't I played 1 year of college beach volleyball because I was too old to like get into that, right?
Hmm.
So the girls that are getting this basically they're actually getting paid to train and play as like a collegiate player, because they're getting paid in their scholarship money, they're getting paid in whatever extra expenses. Now the NIL deal
NIL.
went
Yep.
through, so they're getting paid in sponsorship money. Like awesome. But like then once college is over, I've seen this like transition of like, oh, now I have to find my own coach and I have to pay them myself and I have to find my own strength coach and pay them themselves. I have to also decide if those coaches are good. Like in college, you kind of know who's good, but like in the pro world, there's like a couple top coaches and then it's like a free for all. So it's interesting to see like the success the first year out of college that players have because they're still getting coaching or like while they're in college and they're just playing in the summer on the pro tour. And then like 2, 3, 4 years after they get out of college, how honestly like
Hmm.
hard it is to keep those really talented players in the system because it's just not worth it financially. Um, So it's kind of a bummer. But I've tried really hard to like have a lot of conversations with like girls coming out of college, girls still in college about like, hey, like if you really want to make this sport work, like financial stability is the number one thing you need to do because you need to be able to afford to play this. Um, because a lot of girls would come out and just try to like be a beach bum for a couple years, which is really fun. And that's why we all still play because beach volleyball is so fun. And like, it's just everyone in the community is freaking awesome. Everyone loved like you're hanging out on the beach, you're like having beers after you play. Like there is no bad about playing a beach volleyball tournament, right? But like, so it's fun, but then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm like 28, 29, 30, and like
I got a mortgage.
I don't have a mortgage because I haven't been able to afford to buy a house, or
Yep,
like
there you
I
go.
don't have any savings, or like I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. Like that becomes a lot less fun. So yeah, unfortunately the sport of beach volleyball isn't there yet, but we're really hopeful. I think the college women's game has really changed it on the international scene too, because the girls are coming from all over the world to play in the NCAA and they're going back to their countries and making the world tour a lot more competitive. So, and like spreading that kind of like American sports ideal, like, you know, if you're like the McNamara twins, for example, used to play at UCLA and now they're playing for Team Canada, and like all of UCLA who used to cheer for them, all those Americans, like now they're like, oh, the McNamaras, you know, so they're getting more interested in the world tour. And I think that's worked really well for like other top five sports like baseball, basketball,
Hmm.
football, all that stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes. Unfortunately, it might not happen in like my lifespan of professional sports, but you know, like I said, it's a blast, and that's why all of us play. And I think it makes the volleyball community like really unique because no one's in it for the money. Everyone's
Laying the
in it for
foundation, though. You're laying the
yeah,
foundation, which hey, you're going to be in the history books. I think that part's pretty interesting and very important, right? That's
yeah,
good to know. And as you said, you still touch the sport through all the athletes that you work with, all the people that you get to work with. Shout out Kelly Clays, Sarah Spongle, if I'm not mistaken. They were incredible. Kelly was on this show a
oh
while back,
nice,
which was super
yeah,
cool. She's incredible. So it was fun to get to talk to her about what she's done. I think that what one's USC, one's UCLA. Please don't let them know that I forgot which one went where because I don't think that's going to go over that well. But
yeah.
no, and I think that's really interesting, right? Just the fact that hey, it's you do it literally for the love of the game. Like that's not a question,
And
and it does
this
sound like a blast. Yeah, hey,
podcast,
I didn't do that
yeah,
one on purpose, but no, and I think that's really important because that's kind of how a lot of this stuff starts, right? And I think then I'm curious, like it doesn't sound like the sport is extremely lucrative, but the opportunities that again you make for yourself can be potentially, right? So shout out Andrew and the Othello group because I know you're working with them. They're doing some awesome,
yes,
awesome stuff. So thank you to them. I'm curious, like from and now that social media now it has existed and this influencer opportunity has come up and come up and come up, right? Obviously you utilize it for, as you said, your followers are mostly volleyball players, so you utilize
yeah,
it for your coaching career, right? As a health coach, I'm sure you utilize it for sponsorship and endorsement opportunities. Like how do you go about finding those? How do you go about making sure that you're getting the right ones, and Andrew and his team are kicking ass and finding you the right ones,
yeah.
and really making sure that it aligns with who you are, but understanding like, hey, you're also trying to get paid. Like you need to get paid in some way, shape, or form. So you can use volleyball as that catalyst to maybe grow that following, which could then bring in the opportunities for endorsements and health coaching. How do you kind of view that, I guess, that puzzle, and how do you put that together in your head?
Yeah, I think it manifests very differently for every player depending on their backgrounds. Like for me, you know, unfortunately I didn't go to like some UCLA schools, and when I was in school, like social media was just starting to become a thing. So like it's kind of interesting to see like now, like the girls who are in college right now, especially with the NIL, like are just way more social media savvy. Like they have followers because all of the people at school like follow them, just like we would for like football or
Yep.
professional sports. So it's honestly, it's like awesome. Like they are getting great opportunities from that, and it's really going to like benefit the sport as a whole. Like that, people are going to be able to capitalize on that. For someone like me who has really had to do a lot of work and like uh, you know, like self reflection to like figure out what my brand is going to be and like what my social media is going to say. Like, you know, when I first started working with Andrew, um, he was like, "You got to post every day," and I was like, "No."
I don't do everything. I don't do
Yeah,
something every
I was
day.
like,
Like
"This
what?
is not my job. Like, volleyball is my job. Like, no." And he was like, "You don't get it." And so we had some like really interesting conversations about okay, why am I posting every day? Because for me, especially in my what I do and just like who I am as a person, like my biggest values are honesty and authenticity. And so for me to just post to post is absolutely violating like my moral code. And so that's why I was like, no, Andrew, like I'm not doing that. So we had to figure out like, okay, well, what feels genuine for you to post about? And so I think like that has definitely manifested with my health coaching career, like that they go hand in hand. So like if you look at my social media, it's definitely a lot of volleyball content because I love volleyball, and I'll do some tongue-in-cheek posts and post some good rallies, and like I have fun with that. But it's also like I think when I shifted to the perspective of like, hey, if I post something or if I come on a podcast like this, like the things that I say could impact somebody's life for the better. And I think like for that, I'm a real big process over results person, but like definitely for that, the results have really given me confidence and like helped as like, you know, I feel very confident posting a lot of the things that I post because I know for a fact that it has helped somebody else. So if I say it on social media, maybe it's going to change somebody's life. Like, so I think that kind of strategy, making it more authentic to me, made like that first like big important hurdle of like putting yourself out there on social media like happen. And then capitalizing on opportunities has been really interesting too, because and this is where Andrew and I are like super aligned, and I'm like really like working with him as my agent because he really does not like doing like influencer deals because he's like those are just one-offs, and like I'm a relationship person and so is he, and so he's like I'd rather see you as somebody that this is like a genuine part of your life, like, and that works for the brand really well too, because they're like you are literally like a living example of people that we want to use this product, and you are a role model and we want people to look at you like that. And so for me, I think that made the whole like sponsorship aspect and like selling myself like feel a lot more like aligned with who I am.
Authentic.
Yeah, authentic for sure. And so, you know, I think like for sure, like shout out to Now Foods. Like he has helped me work with Now Foods for the last couple of years. And like that was like a no brainer. Like they support athletes and like health and fitness influencers at large. And like all of the people in their community are like very aligned with my values. And so like it just feels like a perfect fit, you know, value wise. And then obviously like the products, like I have a big struggle with like I'm not going to promote something that I don't actually use. And I think especially being a health coach, like you should be able to look at my page and be like, if you're selling me this drink, it like you should actually be using it, or like you're
Yes.
kind of a fraud, and why would I want to trust you with my health,
Hmm.
you know? So it's been really interesting to like navigate that personally. I think at large as a business, in the volleyball community, everybody takes that a little bit differently with
Hey,
whatever works for them. But
teach his own, right?
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
no, I think you have that added layer of the health coach aspect, right? Like it's one thing to say, "Oh, this is healthy food," and I eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe I don't like it, but I eat it, kind of thing, right? But then there's that
Yeah.
extra layer of not only am I an athlete, I'm also a health coach, and I believe in this product from for myself and
Mm-hmm.
for me, both sides of me, as well as my clientele, who mostly are athletes and are my health coaching clients, right? Like it's that whole just that extra added layer of something like that. So again, shout out Andrew. He is pretty incredible at what he does. So I appreciate him him being a friend, obviously being on this show. I can't remember the number episode. It was like 15 or whatever. I think Kim, you're 287 at this point. So it's been a minute.
Nice.
I've gotten much better at this, which I think is cool too. But
Way to
um,
practice on him. He's a good practice dummy.
he's got a really interesting story too, which I always thought was really
Yeah.
cool. He was on like Sirius XM, and then he was traveling all over the Mediterranean. Like he did some pretty crazy shit. But
Yeah.
um, so I think that's really important, and I think it's really cool that you've been able to find brands, people to help, but also brands that you're able to connect with on multiple different levels. Again, with the two sides of you, and I keep saying that, but in reality, it's all one of you. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of which you're paying attention to a little bit more, I guess, at that time. So I do have a little question for you, the
Okay.
health coach Kim.
Mm-hmm.
My LDL is just a little bit high. What should I do to maybe take that down? I think I'm at 107 and I was told I should be under 100, right? So it's not like crazy, but I do want to get that down. I don't know. What's something I could do?
Yeah, so one of the biggest pieces of the health coaching profession is clear boundaries. We are assets to the medical community, but like for
Nice. This was a
sure,
good question then. You didn't say good
yes.
question. Come on.
Great question. So I am not a doctor. I am not a registered dietitian. So I am not allowed legally to give you medical advice on that. So what my job would be is to tell you like, hey, like this is not in the scope of my profession. you need to go talk to your doctor about this. Whatever his recommendations are, I can make sure that we get you doing those recommendations consistently so that your LDL does come down. But
Nice.
like, it's not my job or expertise to like actually tell you medical recommendations, which is a super important part of this
Yeah.
because definitely people come to me and they're like, write me a meal plan. And I'm like, that's not what I do. And
That's not
also,
how this
you've
works.
probably had somebody write you a meal plan before and you didn't follow it, and there's a reason. So we're not doing that.
Love it. Well, I'm glad I asked
Yeah.
that question. I think it's just like less cheese and red meat. I think that's what I was told by multiple dietitians. So I don't think it's going to be that hard. I also think the only reason was I took the blood test like a month after Christmas, and my wife got me like an entire box of beef jerky, and I can't help myself when it comes to beef jerky. So I literally just ate like copious amounts of beef jerky every single day, and it was incredible. I'm pretty sure that number has come down only because I stopped eating so much beef jerky, but it was awesome. But you know what else was
Yeah.
awesome, Kim? This entire conversation, and I
It
really
was.
appreciate you coming on. I'm glad you had a good time. That's like my number one goal is you had a good time and everyone listening had a good time. And I just along the way get to learn a bunch of stuff about cool people. As I said, love listening to people who are passionate about stuff. Kim, where can everybody follow you online? Where they can find more information on Now Foods? Where they can find more information on your health coaching business, on your volleyball career? Lay it all down.
Yeah. So the biggest social media that I use is my Instagram, which is just my name, Kim_Hildreth. And then my health coaching website is linked to my Instagram, but it's healthcoachingwithkim.com, where you can find all the information about, my packages, how to contact me. I do a free, anybody that's really interested in working with a health coach, I have a free 30-minute consultation to see if it's a good fit for you to work with my program. And yeah,
I love it. That's easy.
yeah.
And I'll just in case you missed it, if you're just listening, I'll put all the notes, all those links in the show notes for everybody so that they can get those there. Kim, sincerely again, thank you. Shout out to Andrew and Othello Group again for having you come on as well, hooking us up. I really, really appreciate it. You have such a cool career and an opportunity, and we aligned on a lot of cool stuff, which I wasn't sure if that was going to happen, but clearly it did. So this was an absolute blast. So to you, to everyone listening, thank you for your time. It's the only thing we don't get more of, so I appreciate you giving me a little bit of yours. And other than that, I hope everybody just has a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.